The day my stepfather changed the locks, I stood on our driveway clutching a trash bag containing everything I owned and $12 in my pocket. I was 17. Mom watched from the window, silent tears streaming down her face, but she never came outside. That moment hardened something in me that took years to soften again. Now 10 years later, I own a $750,000 home, and suddenly the family that discarded me wants back in my life. The irony is almost poetic. If you are watching this, drop a comment telling me where you are from, and subscribe to hear how I rebuilt my life from nothing. I never imagined my teenage years would end with me homeless. Before that fateful day, I had been living with my mother and stepfather Richard in a modest suburban home. My relationship with Richard had always been strained, but I managed to keep the peace for Mom. She married him when I was 8, and over the years he became increasingly controlling over every aspect of our lives. Despite the tension at home, I had big dreams. Architecture fascinated me from an early age. I would spend hours sketching building designs and researching universities with strong architectural programs. My bedroom walls were covered with drawings and cutouts from architectural magazines. Mom always encouraged my passion, though only when Richard was not around. She would smile at my sketches and tell me I had a gift. Richard, however, had different ideas about my future. He worked as a manager at a local factory and believed college was a waste of money. "Real men work with their hands," he would say dismissively whenever I mentioned university applications. The day everything changed began like any other. I had stayed after school to work on college applications with my guidance counselor. We had found several scholarship opportunities, and I returned home excited to share the news with Mom. When I walked through the door, Richard was waiting. My acceptance letter from State University had arrived that day. He had opened it. "What is this?" he demanded, waving the letter in my face. Going behind my back, I earned that acceptance. I replied, trying to stay calm, and I found scholarships too. "Not under my roof," Richard growled. "My house, my rules. You want to waste time on useless degrees, you do it somewhere else." Mom stood in the kitchen doorway, wringing her hands. "Richard, please," she whispered. "Helena worked so hard for this. Choose." Richard turned to her. "Him or me?" I will never forget the look on her face. Pain, conflict, and then surrender. She looked down at the floor, and my heart shattered. 3 hours later, I stood outside with my belongings stuffed into a black garbage bag. Richard had changed the locks while I packed the few things he allowed me to take. No computer, no phone, just some clothes, a sketchbook, and $12 from my wallet. The rest of my savings in my account would only be accessible when I turned 18, 6 months away. Mom watched from behind the living room curtain, tears streaming down her face. I waited, hoping she would run out, tell me this was all a mistake. She never did. That first night, I slept on a bench in Wilson Park. The temperature dropped to 40 degrees, and my thin jacket provided little protection. I curled around my trash bag, using clothes as a pillow. Sleep came in fitful bursts between shivers. The reality of my situation hit in waves. I had been discarded by the people who were supposed to love me most. Morning brought no relief, just hunger and stiffness. I used $2 to buy a day-old bagel at a coffee shop where the cashier let me fill a cup with hot water for free. I nursed that small meal for hours, trying to figure out my next move. By the third day, exhaustion and hunger had taken their toll. I was sitting on a curb outside the high school, debating whether to go inside or simply walk away from education altogether, when Mr. Thompson found me. Mr. Thompson taught advanced mathematics and had always been kind to me. He noticed my unwashed appearance and the dark circles under my eyes. "Helena," he said gently, sitting beside me. "What happened?" The story spilled out in broken sentences. Mr. Thompson listened without interruption, his expression growing darker. "You can stay on my couch for 2 weeks, he finally said. "That will give us time to figure something out." The relief nearly broke me. 2 weeks seemed like an eternity when measured against the 3 days I had already endured on the streets. That night, showered and fed, I slept on his living room couch beneath clean blankets. The comfort was almost painful after what I had experienced. During those 2 weeks, I tried repeatedly to contact Mom. My calls went straight to voicemail. My texts remained unread. Finally, I waited outside her workplace one afternoon just to speak with her. She emerged from the building and saw me. For one hopeful moment, I thought she would embrace me. Instead, her eyes widened in panic. She turned and walked quickly in the opposite direction, pretending she had not seen me at all. Later that week, I learned from a former neighbor that my remaining belongings had been thrown into a dumpster. My childhood photos, awards, memorabilia, all discarded like trash. Something within me changed that day. The desperate hope for reconciliation transformed into a cold determination to survive without them. With Mr. Thompson's help, I secured a job washing dishes at a local diner. The pay was minimal, but they were willing to work around my school schedule. Within a week, I added a second job, working night shifts, at a 24-hour convenience store. Between the two, I managed to save enough to start looking for a place to stay. My schedule became brutal. School from 8 in the morning until 3 in the afternoon. Dishwashing from 4 until 10 at night. Convenience store from 11 until 5 in the morning. Sleep for 2 hours. Repeat. Homework happened during breaks and slow periods at the store. I existed in a perpetual state of exhaustion. Despite everything, I maintained my grades. Education became my lifeline, the one thing no one could take from me. Teachers noticed my situation and helped where they could, extending deadlines when necessary, providing quiet places to study during lunch periods. At the end of my 2 weeks on Mr. Thompson's couch, I still had nowhere permanent to go. My meager savings would not cover even the cheapest apartment deposit. That evening, as I prepared to thank him for his help and return to the streets, a phone call changed everything. "I might have a solution," Mr. Thompson said after hanging up. "My mother-in-law needs help around her house. She has a small basement room she might rent to you at a reduced rate in exchange for some assistance with maintenance and errands." The following day, I met Jasmine Carter, an 82-year-old widow with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. She showed me a tiny basement room with a twin bed dresser and small desk. "Bathroom is shared upstairs," she explained. "Rent is $200 monthly, but I will reduce it to $100 if you handle yard work, grocery shopping, and help me get to doctor appointments twice a month." I accepted immediately. The room was barely 100 square feet, but it had a door that locked and a small window that let in natural light. Compared to a park bench, it was paradise. Jasmine became more than a landlady. She taught me practical skills I had never learned: how to cook inexpensive, nutritious meals, how to budget my limited income, how to perform basic home repairs. Her matter-of-fact approach to life helped me navigate my new reality without self-pity. "Everyone faces hardship," she told me one evening, as we shared a simple dinner. "What matters is not what happens to you, but what you do with it." By the time graduation approached, I had saved enough for community college tuition. My guidance counselor helped me apply for every available scholarship and grant. The financial aid package I received covered approximately 60% of the costs. I would need to work full-time to cover the rest, but it was possible. 2 months before graduation, a letter arrived that changed everything. The State Architectural Foundation had selected me for their annual scholarship after reviewing my portfolio. It would not cover all expenses, but combined with my other aid and savings, it made university possible. I cried when I read the letter. Jasmine, not usually demonstrative, patted my shoulder awkwardly. "You earned this," she said simply. Community college became my stepping stone. I took maximum credits while continuing to work nearly full-time. Sleep became a luxury I could rarely afford. 4 hours a night became my norm, supplemented with short naps between classes and shifts. After 2 years of this punishing schedule, I transferred to the State University Architectural Program. University brought new challenges, but also opportunities. An internship opened up at Westfield Architectural Firm, one of the most prestigious in the state. The selection process was competitive, and I spent weeks perfecting my application and portfolio. The day I received the acceptance call, I was working my shift at a campus coffee shop. I stepped outside to take the call and nearly collapsed when they offered me the position. It paid an actual salary, not much, but more than I had ever earned before. At Westfield, I met Marcus Denham, a senior architect who took an interest in my work. He became my mentor, showing me aspects of architectural design that went beyond what I learned in classrooms. Under his guidance, my skills developed rapidly. "You have raw talent," he told me, after reviewing my first major project. "But more importantly, you have determination. That will take you further than talent alone." My first substantial paycheck felt unreal. After paying rent, tuition installments, and other necessities, I still had money left over. I opened a savings account with strict instructions to myself. Half of everything I earned beyond basic expenses would go into that account. Marcus noticed my frugal lifestyle and asked about my financial goals. When I explained my determination to never be financially vulnerable again, he nodded with understanding. "Real estate," he said. "That is where true financial security begins. Start small, but start as soon as you can." Thus began my education in property investment. Marcus taught me to look for undervalued properties, to recognize potential beneath cosmetic problems, to understand zoning regulations and building codes from an investor perspective. 3 years later, with my savings and a small loan, I purchased my first property, a rundown duplex in a transitional neighborhood. The building needed significant work, but the structure was sound. Evenings and weekends that should have been spent resting were instead filled with renovation work. I learned plumbing, electrical basics, flooring installation, whatever I could do myself to save money. 6 months of grueling work transformed the duplex into 2 rentable units. The rental income covered the mortgage, with a small profit margin that went directly back into savings for the next investment. 10 years have passed since I stood in that driveway with my trash bag. The scared 17-year-old with $12 is now 27, with a successful career and financial stability I once could only dream about. My architectural practice employs 10 people. We specialize in sustainable urban residential design. The reputation we have built brings a steady stream of clients seeking innovative solutions for challenging spaces. My investment strategy paid off beyond my expectations. That first duplex led to other properties, each carefully selected and renovated. What began as security became a significant part of my wealth building. The crowning achievement sits on a hill overlooking the city, my personal residence. I designed it myself, incorporating everything I had learned about both beauty and functionality. The $750,000 valuation reflects not just the prime location, but the uniqueness of the design. My personal life flourished as well. Liam came into my life during a charity event for homeless youth. His work with at-risk teenagers resonated with my own experiences. Our relationship developed, slowly built on mutual respect and understanding. We have shared the house on the hill for 3 years now. The letter arrived on a Tuesday. Plain white envelope, my name and address handwritten in familiar script that sent a jolt through my system. My mother's handwriting. After almost a decade of silence, I stared at it for hours before finding the courage to open it. "My dearest Helena," it began. "Not a day has passed that I have not thought of you and regretted my failures as a mother. The choices I made caused you pain I can never undo. I understand if you want nothing to do with me, but I am hoping that somehow we might find our way back to each other." The letter continued with vague references to difficult times and hopes for reconciliation. Between the lines, I detected hints about financial struggles. One sentence particularly stood out. "Richard has had challenges in his career, and my health has not been what it once was." The emotions that surged through me were complex and contradictory. Anger at the decade of abandonment, longing for the mother I had needed, suspicion about the timing, curiosity about what had prompted this sudden outreach. I showed the letter to Liam that evening. "What do you want to do?" he asked after reading it. "I do not know," I admitted. "Part of me wants to ignore it completely. Another part needs answers. "Whatever you decide," he said, "I am with you." Before responding, I needed information. I hired a private investigator to learn what had happened to my family over the years. The report he delivered provided context that the letter had omitted. Richard had lost his management position 3 years ago due to company restructuring. Since then, he had worked a series of lower-paying jobs, none lasting more than a few months. My mother had been diagnosed with an autoimmune condition requiring expensive medication not fully covered by insurance. Their house was in foreclosure proceedings. Most surprising was the discovery of a half-sister, Abigail, now 19, and struggling through her first year of community college. Her existence had never been mentioned in the letter. The investigator also uncovered the narrative they had created about my absence. According to neighbors and acquaintances, I had run away after becoming involved with a bad crowd. My mother had apparently played the role of the heartbroken parent, abandoned by a troubled teen. Armed with this knowledge, I agreed to a meeting. We arranged to meet at a neutral location, a restaurant downtown. The anticipation made me physically ill. Liam offered to accompany me, but this was something I needed to do alone. They arrived together, Mom, Richard, and a young woman I assumed was Abigail. Mom had aged dramatically, her once vibrant face now lined and tired. Richard had gained weight and lost hair. Abigail looked uncomfortable, clearly uncertain about meeting the brother she had been told was a delinquent who had abandoned the family. The initial greetings were awkward. Mom cried, reaching for my hands across the table. Richard smiled broadly, a strange sight given our history. "Look at you," he boomed. "Always knew you would do well for yourself once you got your act together." The revision of history was breathtaking in its audacity. As dinner progressed, the conversation turned increasingly toward my current circumstances. Questions about my work led to questions about my home and investments. Mom mentioned Abigail's college aspirations with pointed emphasis on the financial challenges. Finally, Richard cleared his throat and delivered what was clearly the purpose of this reunion. "We have been thinking," he said, "that it is time to put the past behind us and be a family again. Your mother misses you terribly. And with our current situation, we thought what better way to reconnect than to spend real time together." "What are you suggesting?" I asked, though I already knew. "We need to be out of our house by the end of the month," Mom interjected. "We thought maybe we could stay with you, just temporarily. Your place is certainly big enough from what we hear." "We could help out," Richard added quickly. "I am good with maintenance, and it would give Abigail a stable place to study. Bring the family back together like it should be." I looked at Abigail, who stared at her plate, clearly mortified by their transparent attempt. I felt sorry for her. "I need to use the restroom," I said, needing a moment to process this brazen request. In the hallway near the restrooms, I overheard Richard speaking on his phone. I froze when I heard my name. "The kid bought it," he was saying. "We will be in the house by next week. Should be able to ride this for years." The world tilted sideways. My vision tunneled. The hope I had secretly harbored, despite my outward cynicism, that perhaps there was genuine remorse, a real desire to reconnect, collapsed entirely. This was not reconciliation. This was opportunism. I barely made it to the sink before the nausea overwhelmed me. Looking at my reflection, I saw a flash of that 17-year-old standing in the driveway, and then the man I had become through my own efforts. I straightened my shoulders, washed my face, and left the bathroom. Without a word to any of them, I walked out of the restaurant. My phone began ringing immediately. Mom, then Richard, then Mom again. I silenced it and drove home to Liam. The week that followed was one of intense emotional processing. Liam listened as I cycled through rage, grief, and eventually clarity. I spoke with Dr. Rivera, the therapist who had helped me work through abandonment issues years earlier. "You owe them nothing, Doctor," Rivera reminded me. "But you owe yourself closure, whatever form that takes." I realized that what I needed was not to punish them or to welcome them unconditionally, but to establish truth and boundaries. After 10 days of reflection, I contacted them again. This time, I invited them to my office rather than my home. They arrived, looking expectant, carrying what appeared to be overnight bags. The sight would have been amusing if it were not so presumptuous. "Before we discuss anything further," I began, I need to address something I overheard at the restaurant. Richard, I heard your phone conversation about writing this for years. The color drained from his face. Mom looked confused, then horrified as understanding dawned. You misunderstood, Richard blustered. That was about something completely different. I do not think so, I replied calmly. I believe you see me as a meal ticket, not as family. The timing of your reappearance in my life is too convenient to be coincidence. How dare you, Richard? Stood face reddening. After all we did for you, all you did. The question came out softly. You threw me away like garbage when I was 17 years old. My mother watched and did nothing. You discarded my possessions and created lies about why I left. You abandoned me completely for a decade, reaching out only when you needed something. What exactly should I be grateful for? Mom began crying. Abigail looked stunned by this version of events that clearly contradicted what she had been told. I have had time to think about what family means, I continued. Family supports each other. Family tells the truth. Family does not appear only when there is something to gain. Richard made to interrupt, but I held up my hand. I am not finished. I will not allow you to move into my home. That boundary is non-negotiable. However, I am willing to help in specific ways on my terms. I outlined my offers: direct payment of Abigail's tuition and books, arrangement of a payment plan for Mom's medical bills contingent upon family therapy sessions, financial counseling for both parents to address the root problems, rather than temporarily relieving symptoms. This is insulting, Richard snapped. We do not need your charity. It is not charity, I corrected him. It is assistance with accountability. There is a difference. Mom wiped her eyes. I will do the therapy, she said quietly. I want to try to make things right. Abigail spoke for the first time. I did not know what happened to you, she said. They told me you ran away because you were into drugs or something. I never ran away, I told her gently, and I have never used drugs. I was kicked out for wanting to go to college. Her expression reflected shock, then anger as she turned to look at our parents. In that moment, I saw something of myself in her. The meeting ended with mixed results. Richard stormed out, refusing any help that came with strings attached. Mom accepted the offer of therapy and medical bill assistance. Abigail stayed behind after our parents left, asking questions about my experience and sharing her own difficulties growing up in their household. Over the following months, a slow process of genuine reconciliation began with Mom. Our therapy sessions were difficult but necessary. She acknowledged her failure to protect me and the lies she had participated in afterward. The work was painful for both of us, but slowly we established a new relationship built on honesty rather than obligation. Abigail and I developed a genuine sibling bond. When her dormitory situation became untenable, I offered her one of my rental properties at a fair but affordable rate. She accepted, gratefully understanding that this arrangement respected both her independence and our developing relationship. Richard remained distant, unwilling to acknowledge his role in what happened. He eventually accepted my help by proxy through Mom, but never directly engaged in making amends. His pride would not allow it. I came to accept that some relationships cannot be healed, only understood. The experience changed me in unexpected ways. I recognized patterns in myself. The relentless drive for success, partly motivated by a desire to prove my worth to people who had deemed me worthless. With this awareness came freedom. I no longer needed their validation to know my value. A year has passed since that fateful letter arrived. The changes in my family dynamics have settled into a new normal. Mom and I speak weekly. Our conversations are no longer shadowed by unspoken resentments or manipulations. She has begun volunteering at a youth shelter, her way of making amends by helping others in the situation she put me in. Abigail has flourished with stability and support. She switched her major to social work, inspired by both my story and her own experiences. She pays her rent on time and has become a welcome regular at our Sunday dinners. Richard remains on the periphery of these new arrangements. His pride prevents him from directly accepting help or acknowledging past wrongs, but he has stopped actively undermining the healing process. This distance is its own form of peace. The journey from that driveway with $12 to my current life seems almost unbelievable sometimes. I often think about the people who became my true family along the way. Jasmine, who taught me self-reliance. Mr. Thompson, who provided safety when I most needed it. Marcus, who showed me how to build security. And Liam, who loves me without conditions. The hardship shaped me in ways both painful and valuable. It taught me resilience and self-reliance. It showed me the difference between those who truly care and those who only appear when there is something to gain. Strangely, I have found gratitude for these harsh lessons. The most important wisdom I gained concerns forgiveness and boundaries. Forgiveness does not require reconciliation or continued relationship. It is possible to forgive someone while still maintaining the boundaries necessary for your own well-being. Helping others should come from choice, not obligation, and should empower rather than enable. Liam and I are discussing starting our own family now. The thought once terrified me. How could I be a good parent when my own example was so flawed? Therapy helped me realize that I can choose which patterns to continue and which to break. The scholarship fund I established for homeless youth last year has already helped 3 students begin college. Speaking at high schools about my experience has become a regular part of my schedule. Seeing recognition in the eyes of teenagers facing similar challenges gives purpose to my past pain. What I want others to understand is that home is something we create, not just something we inherit. Family can be found and formed beyond blood relations. The true measure of success is not in wealth accumulated but in creating the security and belonging once denied to you. Have you ever had to rebuild your life or set difficult boundaries with family? Share your story in the comments below. Do not forget to subscribe for more real stories of resilience and healing. Like this video if it resonated with you, and share it with someone who might need to hear that their worth is not determined by those who failed to see it. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember, sometimes the family we create matters more than the family we were born into.